8 races in the books, just 2 remaining. A chance to seal the title tonight as the top drivers in all of iRacing look to battle at the virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway. But when it comes to the Sim City, it's the matter of a couple things: the chance for gambles and the chance for strategy. Who will take home the victory today on the Global SimRacing Channel? We're moments away from finding out. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway for round number 9 of the Precision Racing League Cup Series season, sponsored by Diecast Kings. I'm Justin Prince. Alongside me in the booth tonight is NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series driver Christian Challoner. Behind the scenes, our director Sean Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. As these drivers practice their restarts for tonight's event, let's take a look at your GSRC lap guide for the best way around this mile-and-a-half cookie cutter.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Global Sim Racing Channel. My name is Brian Yazek, and I'll be taking you for a spin around Las Vegas Motor Speedway in the GSRC Camaro. Las Vegas Motor Speedway is a 20-degree progressively banked speedway that over the years has become extremely bumpy, but a whole lot of fun to the drivers. So on your hot lap, swinging it really low here, going to dive it right off into turn 1, roll out of the throttle a little bit, and as soon as you feel it cut down, hold that yellow line, hold the throttle down, and you're going to let it drift right out to that wall, right about to that South Point sign. Going down the backstretch, turn 3 is very inviting to overdrive it, but once again, dive it right down to the bottom of the track, wait for it to grip, catch the throttle, and jump right back into it and swing it right out wide on the exit of turn 4. The other thing that you'll notice is Las Vegas will chew up tires, so you're going to see drivers go off into turn 1, and they're going to take this very high line because there's no heat up there. There's no debris. So there's going to be a lot of grip up there, and they're going to get a great shot coming down the back stretch. Same situation going into turn 3, entering high, splitting that seam right there. Find the throttle, and you're going to let it drift right out to the wall and get a huge head of steam on the guy that you're trying to pass. Go on down to the apron for a little bit of extra fun and try to get the nose underneath the guy going into turn 1 to set up the pass. Las Vegas Motor Speedway is a lot of fun to the drivers. Very bumpy, very, very hard on tires, but it always puts on a great show. This has been your GSRC lap guide. I'm Brian Yazek. Enjoy the show.
That's a look at your GSRC lap guide for the best way around Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Now let's bring in my broadcast partner for tonight, Christian Challoner, and look at the track details because it is a mile-and-a-half circuit. And in turn, not Daytona as shown on the screen, apologies there, it is a track where it does have its unique characteristics in when it comes to turns 1 and 2 being slightly different than 3 and 4.
Yeah, this is a really interesting mile and a half, actually one of my favorites along with Homestead. I kind of find that, as you were saying, in terms of 1 and 2, we see a lot of variation in terms of lines. You see some guys can run high, some guys can run low, and kind of moves around a little bit as the run goes on. I do think tonight we're going to see a lot of pack-style racing. Everybody's really tight together, running about 30.8s for lap times. And 20 degrees of banking in the turns. Turn 4 on exit tends to get kind of a bit tight, so I think we should have to watch out for that.
Indeed, it's going to be interesting to see how these drivers react across the 20 degrees of banking in today's event. But before we get to the championship standings, I'd like to remind you this series is sponsored by Diecast Kings. Shop Diecast Kings, your home for the best selection of NHRA and NASCAR diecast cars at diecastkings.com. Once again, that's diecastkings.com. You can also find them on Facebook at facebook.com/diecastking. The championship window for the series, very interesting because Richard Regan Jr. in a possible position with the drop week factored in to take the championship with a possible top 5 run today. 54 points ahead he is in front of James O'Brien. O'Brien is noted to currently be at the Real World Sebring circuit for today's round. Pat Harvey is in third though entering today, with Rachel Hunt and Josh Slade rounding up the top 5 in the standings. 90 points separate the top 5 in the standings. For the team standings, Skidmark Motorsports as an organization has put in 5 top 5s and 11 top 10s. And today, they look to also put themselves in position to potentially lock themselves up into a team championship. Power Performance Group Waterback Road Trip Racing, Primetime Racing, and 24/7 Motorsports round out the top 5. 24/7 Motorsports, however, the only team in terms of that grouping to technically get in the win column this season. We'll have to see if that will change, though, today with this type of racetrack. Now let's take a look at the race details for those tuning in for the first time once again, Christian, because there are a couple things to note. The distance, about 85 laps, Christian.
Yeah, it's round 9 of 10 tonight, and as you said, Richard Regan Jr. obviously in a position to clinch the championship tonight, so we'll have to watch out for him. We were looking at him for Daytona, obviously had that wreck that really didn't help him out, could have clinched it a little bit earlier. As always in this league, it's fixed setup, no fast repair, and 85 laps or 60 minutes, and that will be one green flag pit stop if it does stay green, with a 24 incident limit.
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion in terms of where you can go with the strategy. We'll get to that point as the night progresses. Practice wrapping up at the moment, but right now, a cloud above the racetrack. It's going to skew the track conditions just a little bit for when we start off qualifying. Right now, those conditions, 100 degrees Fahrenheit for the track temp, partly cloudy skies, 82 degrees Fahrenheit, humidity, one of the lower points of the season at 48%, rather than the usual 52 we've seen in a lot of events. Wind, very stable, to the north once again at 2 miles an hour. As these drivers finish off the practice, in crashing style down the Nellis straightaway, they'll set up for qualifying. Your thoughts on the track conditions today, which look to be still on the hot side, but that can potentially swing with these clouds for quali.
Yeah, a little bit deceptive here with this big cloud cover, makes it look like it's really cold out there, but it is still about 100, although 100 is not quite near the top end of things that we see. We can see up to about 130, so there is a lot of grip out there right now, and I think for qualifying we'll see a pretty traditional format with everybody using the first lap to get up to speed and then the second lap as their hot lap.
Yeah, the second lap definitely important here, and when it comes to Las Vegas, I've heard so many different types of methods, and we talked about this a little bit at Daytona. What's sort of your preferred method when it comes to the mile-and-a-half type of qualifying now, when it comes to this package?
Well, with mile-and-a-halves, it really comes down to what the car will allow you to do for me. And this is obviously fixed setup, so there's a little bit of consideration there, but normally I will just try and get as low to that white line as I can throughout the entire lap, and it can be difficult. There's some tracks with a lot of bumps, and especially here actually through 1 and 2, it's pretty bumpy on the bottom, so you see a couple of drivers running maybe half a car to a car above. And really it's just it's a matter of can you maintain forward momentum when you're going through sections like that. Obviously everybody's cutting the tri-oval. There's a lot of time to be gained by doing that as well.
Alright, about a third of the field on the track for qualifying, should note. Right now the fastest time, 31.285. That was set by Josh Slade, who we followed along with for his first lap. But many of these drivers are holding out just in case it gets a bit more cooler, because when it comes to track temp, the cooler it gets, the more faster the potential is for the lap. Slade will see how the second lap goes. Using the apron, gains an extra 10, a 31.137. That's surpassed, however, by Charles Sumner with a 1:22 in terms of timing, while a couple others left the grass a touch. Thomas Morris up to the point along with Colton Lane. These drivers already changing the times very dramatically in this qualifying. The track temp staying stable at 99 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, and you saw that with Colton Lane and Mark Kalin, both of them cutting very, very low to the grass. Kalin actually in the grass with his left front, and that's all about trying to just shorten that run to the line as much as possible. This oval has a bit of an interesting configuration with that little Legends oval on the inside there that means the grass kind of sticks out and then jumps back out as you cut through, so you do have to be careful of it, but as these drivers are proving, there is time to be gained by cutting as close as you can.
Until that time by with a 31 flat takes to the top of the pylon. So a lot of the competitors going around us. Talked about Richard Regan Jr. with a stellar season. He's starting his lap. Scotty Johnson, he's ducking off the track in 9th position on the board. Taking a look at Jeff Costello now in that 09 machine meanwhile. And this is the chance with this type of racing though, Christian, to potentially see some drivers, especially when the draft comes into play here in the short runs, to try and really battle for position. It can make it difficult to try and keep position as the race progresses.
Yeah, this track has turned into very much a draft affected track, and as you said, especially on short runs, we see everybody is stacked together very, very tight. And that's really why you're seeing everybody trying to get absolutely everything out of qualifying, because at the moment we've got everybody 1 through 9 within a tenth. Now, it's not hard to pass, so to speak, with the draft, but when everybody's 2x2, it is difficult to point yourself a lane. So there is an importance in qualifying with this package.
Absolutely. Paul Williams the second for his first lap time, a 31.858. Track temp still has not moved, and the sun is slowly creeping up a little bit for some of these competitors. Looking like 2/3 of the field having times to put in amounts on the board. Rachel Hunt's second lap time, 31.066, make it 065. That's enough to take the pole. Richard Regan Jr. just bumps ahead, though, by 6/1000ths of a second. Some fast times in qualifying, near dead even.
Yeah, a lot of drivers waiting until the very end, as you said, and it has paid off for them.
Yeah, a lot of drivers, though, looking like they might not get a time in. Joshua Daniels, one of the last ones who will get one into 7th position up on the pylon. Everybody else appearing they will not put in a qualifying time for the round. 24 total competitors have made their way to Las Vegas Motor Speedway for today's round. Just moments away from the starting grid. Christian, your quick final thoughts.
Well, I think as we saw there, everybody's very, very close, and the draft effect is going to bring absolutely everybody into play, especially at the beginning of the race. It's going to be hard to differentiate yourself unless you can stay near the front of the pack and just try and hold something back for a long run if it does happen.
Drivers all set to take the grid. They'll have about 2 minutes to roll their cars onto the pit lane. 17 total took times for today's race. Let's take a glance at how they'll start today for the Precision Racing League Cup Series, sponsored by Diecast Canes Round. Richard Regan Jr. on the pole once again by 3/1000ths of a second officially. Robert Bichon Jr. moving to second in the final moments of the session. Rachel Hunt and Jake Honchell nearly identical time, separated by 1/1000th of a second for row number 2. Colton Lane starts in 5th with Stephen P. Durbin with a strong qualifying run in 6th. Joshua Daniels in 7th, Thomas Morris 8th, Mark Kalin in 9th, and Robert Melican. He rounds out the top 10 tonight, Christian.
Just missing outside the top 10, we've got Charles Sumner. He was 1/1000th outside of the top 10 with a 31.121. Alongside him is David A. Wilson Jr. And then we have Josh Slade and Scotty Johnson in 13th and 14th, with Paul Williams the second, starting quite a bit further back than I expected him in 15th, and Jeff Costello in 16th. The last driver to take qualifying time was James Duke in 17th. Then we have Bradley Holly in 18th, Dan McLaren 19th, Chad Brown in 20th, and Brendan Chatley in 21st, alongside Byron Hill in 22nd. And the last row of the grid is Evan Black with Corey Silver.
Those are the 24 drivers ready to take to the grid, about 30 seconds or so until they get rolling behind the pace car. Now, you may have recognized the name in 18th position, Bradley Holly. That's because of his dominating success when it comes to the history of the PRL Cup Series here, Christian. Chance we potentially see him on the track tonight here in that 184. He is a series legend, Christian. And one of the main discussion points before the start of the campaign was, if we seen him on the track, was how he would compete against these competitors. Going to be curious to see if he makes his way onto the track tonight, how things will go. It is looking like he will, at the very least, Christian, tonight be up in race control.
Yeah, it would be good to see him out here, but if he is in the admin box for tonight, that's equally as good. But as you say, a pretty much a legend of the series. We've seen him be very, very competitive in the past couple of seasons when he has raced. So a little bit of a shame to not see him out there if he is in race control. But at the same time, good to see him still involved in the series.
2 drivers did not make it onto the track. That was James Duke and Bradley Holly specifically, who do not make it onto the circuit. 22 total will be set to take the green flag. What are your keys to victory tonight, Christian, to take home the checkered flag in round number 9 and try and see how things will shape up to determine how the points window will look for the final?
Well, the biggest thing for me is to not lose track position on the short runs when everybody is packed together. It's about not making mistakes in terms of your line choice. You don't want to get yourself stuck either on the outside, or if the top becomes dominant, you don't want to be stuck on the bottom with the trainer cars here outside. So it's all about positioning, and then really kind of not necessarily saving, but just making sure that you don't burn off your tires, and so that if you do get a long run, you can kind of play into it a little bit that way.
Indeed. We'll see how these drivers run today. As Richard Regan Jr. driving the Multiple Sclerosis Society machine on the inside. Robert Bisson Jr. in the PRL Cup Series machine on the outside. Official iRacing pace car is off. Green flag is up at the stand. Off and away, we're racing at Las Vegas.
We're going to see too wide for a number of laps right here. There's a lot of grip out there.
Already the bottom line, much preferred for this start. Many drivers trying to make their way to that line. Bisson Jr. losing ground like a rolling stone, already up on the top line along with Jake Honshaw as everyone gets up to speed. Already a 5-car, make it more so, drafting train runs the line, and Lane goes under the line. Rachel Hunt loose off towards the apron, collides with Lane. Caution flag still not out as they spin on the track. Now it waves with multiple drivers involved.
Yeah, looking at that, it looked like it all started with Colton Lane and Rachel Hunt. Both of them clipped the apron in the middle of 3 and 4. I think there was just a lot more grip than they were expecting. And then they were chasing their cars on the exit. And obviously, you had people to their outside. And Rachel Hunt went down to pit road. And Colton Lane, unfortunately, ended up going back up the track and into the wall on the exit of 4.
It almost looked like both of them didn't have too much grip. It almost looked like they drifted their way. Just a little bit over rotation, in fact, to that apron. And then it takes them that whole entire sequence to get their cars back in control. But for some cases, there were cars there. Rachel Hunt, I think, needed at least the whole entire track to save.
Yeah, and it is difficult, especially on cold tires at the beginning of these runs. As you say, I think initially my thought was that they cut down and they'd just been caught out by how much grip they had. But like you say, it looked like the rear end of the car started going around, and that's what actually forced them down there. So really unfortunate, though. That's taken out the vast majority of the field right off the bat.
Yeah, that collected Lane, Honshaw, Bisson Jr., Daniels with some contact. Also getting spun around a bit was McLaren. Many others involved. Here's Bisson Jr. hitting the outside wall and collecting the 51. And getting bumped a couple times over as well on his slide up the racetrack. Again, half the field already jumping to the pit lane for the first yellow flag of the race. A couple other drivers didn't make it to the start, we should note, at all. Evan Black, Corey Silva did not take the green flag either for this race.
Ton of damage on a lot of cars out here as well. And at a track where you're full throttle for so long, that's really going to hurt them.
Yeah, that is massive amounts of damage here, and not how these drivers wanted to start this event. There were a couple drivers who were getting loose a little bit in practice off of turn 4, but nothing to that magnitude, Christian. And sometimes when it comes to the fixed set, when it comes to a harder track, it can be affected by the lack of grip on a harder surface.
Yeah, and especially when you're in the pack as well, everything does kind of change, and as much as you can kind of do some practice runs with a couple of cars around you, it's never quite the same as being, say, right in the middle of the pack as those two cars were. So, as we saw, it caught both of them out, and as you say, it's just one of those things that can happen, and they must be feeling really bad because nobody wants to do that, and obviously it's not only their race that's pretty much over, it's obviously a bunch of other people.
So at least in our lap or two under the pace car, your lights are still on for these drivers. Again, to recap, 11th on back has now had to pit due to the caution flag. Some of the drivers, for instance, some of them actually ran through the grass, and there is the potential, and this was discussed by some teams throughout the week, where if you run through the grass too hard here at Las Vegas, you can damage the suspension just a little bit. A couple drivers did have that case. Thomas Morris, 31 seconds in the pits. Baron Hilton, just a 15-second stop. James Duke, he did not have to take service. Paul Williams II took 16, 17 seconds. Charles Sumner and Chatley, able to just take 4 tires and fuel. Hunt, Lane, Wilson Jr., McLaren, all getting repairs. Jake Honshaw, already a DNF. Those are the drivers who all ducked down to the caution flag, and just like that, James Duke, he's up to 10th because of the quick yellow.
Yeah, and it did work out for some drivers like James Duke. Obviously, didn't work out quite so good for a lot of people, but some big moves in that. Chad Brown up to 8th for 20th. And I think that now it's going to be a totally different race. We've obviously had a lot of lot of very fast cars that were caught up in that, and now they're really going to be down on speed, and they're going to have to try and get what they can get from the back.
And Mark Kalin, one of the drivers we seen had some good racing at Daytona last week, starting on the outside of the front row for this restart. One to go signal for the race cars, and a lot of names you don't usually see up towards the front, to be quite frank. Durbin, Melican, Jeff Costello inside the top 10 because of this. Chad Brown up in 8th position. Because of that quick yellow, there's a chance for a lot of good points for some competitors to try and move up within the top 30.
Yeah, and I think this is a huge advantage for Richard Regan Jr. He's obviously out there in the lead. A lot of his closest rivals were caught up in that wreck, and as you say, the top 10 is now populated by a lot of drivers that we don't regularly see in the top 10, so they have an opportunity for a very good points day here.
Yeah, Josh Slay looking to try and gain some big points. There's a chance he can move up higher than Rachel Hunt now because of that incident. He came into tonight 5th in the standings, remember. Another driver to keep an eye on, Joshua Daniels. Strong race at Daytona in the 77 machine. There's a chance we see him move up from the 13th position in the points. Lots of opportunities now coming towards the restart once again. Richard Regan Jr. off and away. Green flag is out. Back to racing from the Sin City.
Yeah, he goes very early, gets a big jump. Kalen's stuck on the outside now.
Already some drivers looking to battle to the bottom side. Durbin with a good run. Daniels as well, already to 2nd and 3rd. Kalen quickly getting to the bottom side. Melican quickly blocked down, forced up to single file inside the top 6 positions. So that is really shaping how this field is going to play out. And already checking up behind Daniels. Daniels had to get off the gas a touch as Kalen has a run, while other drivers look to go side by side.
Yeah, it just looked like Daniels lifted a little bit through 3 and 4 after what he saw in that first restart. Didn't want to risk going flat out through there just yet.
There is the risk, Christian, of course, of cold tires in the first couple laps making you a bit loose. And these drivers might be thinking a bit of safe. Kalen clipping the apron this time in the 62 a little bit. Still able to keep it stable, though, in the 4th position. And already a swap for the top 5. Slade was able to get by Robert Melican this past time by. Still ways to go in this race. Fastest lap, Scotty Johnson in 7th position.
Yeah, it definitely looks like drivers are still struggling with that. Just seen Jeff Costello have a big moment in 1 and 2, having to chase it up the racetrack on exit. Now he's vulnerable to Chad Brown on his inside going into 3.
Driving to the inside. Mark looking to have the chance to move up the spot. That run, though, you can get on the top line, still significant down the straightaways. Again, though, as was seen throughout the entire week on the iRacing service, if you can paint the white line, especially in 1 and 2, you're in great shape to make a pass such as that. Mark Kalen up to the top 3, while Stephen Durbin looking to make a run for the lead up in front of him.
Yeah, it's definitely a big deal. The lower you're able to keep the car, the better the run you get off the corner, especially as you're saying off of 2 and as well off of 4. So the better drivers will be able to keep their cars lower for longer, and that's how they're going to make progress here.
On lap number 10 of 85, Durbin able to cut to the bottom a little bit better in his Toyota Camry. And I think Richard Regan knows that draft is a major factor when it comes to this racetrack, especially in the first 20 to 30 laps. It is very difficult to break away unless you have some luck.
Yeah, it's incredibly frustrating, especially if you're the leader, because you cannot get away. It really doesn't matter how good you are. The draft effect is so powerful that, like you say, until you get to 20 or even 30 laps into a run, you are stuck in there, so you cannot escape. So the trick really is to not try. You're not going to get anywhere. So what's the point in overdriving your car?
Yeah, Regan Jr., he wants to keep this lead in the clean air, mind you, knowing the importance of clean air, because there were numbers I've heard, Christian, throughout the week where being in dirty air can sometimes be 20-30% tire wear. That is a lot by having to be just behind somebody compared to being in clean air and just being able to go full throttle.
Yeah, it definitely feels like as soon as you've got somebody on your nose that the aero balance goes all the way back out the rear end of the car and basically into the car behind you. It gets that tight. So you really do want to be out in the lead if you can help it. But with the draft, it's difficult to do. All you can really do is maintain on the bottom and just try and cover off any runs. And if you can, do exactly what Regan Jr. has done right here, which is get the guys behind you too wide so they're fighting each other and not you.
Regan Jr. was able to force Durbin up to the top side. Slade missing the bottom by half a lane, however. And that battle for second along the bumps, nearly tapping the wall of the 42. That Toyota Camry still able to hold on to the top line. Daniels looking to fall back on the bottom side. And as we've seen, if you get to the bottom, open up the rotating door, because there is a chance you can fall in and potentially lose a ton of spots if you don't get to that bottom quickly with this setup so far today.
Yeah, we see Durbin now stuck on the top. He's already been passed by Daniels, and now he's got Melican to his inside as well. He has a gap behind that he can get into if he's quick enough, but if he can't get down, like you say, he's going to get stuck up there pretty much until everybody on the bottom line has passed him.
Curious to see what Josh Slade can do here for this race. Slade, mind you, this is still separated by just about a tenth of a second. They pulled away because of the battle for third from those cars by 3/10 of a second. And take a look how crazy it was just moments ago there with the two wide battling all the way down to the apron. Drivers happy to cut underneath that white line down the front straightaway at the start and finish line to get as best of a run on the bottom side as they can. It does, mind you, affect the tire wear a little bit.
Yeah, and that's something you have to look out for at tracks with this kind of D-shaped oval. That you can go under that white line on the front stretch, but obviously it is flat down there, and like you say, you will slide the tires doing it repeatedly, but as everybody is showing, it's an advantage that they want, and it's a risk they're willing to take.
Yeah, right now, the driver's staying single file for the time being, coming to 69 laps to go, currently amongst the top grouping of the field. One of the drivers you see there at the bottom is at the back of the grid at the moment. Brenton Chatley, one of the drivers who did hit. Just making a move on Scotty Johnson. That was 11th position you've seen in the backdrop. Let's take a look at Chatley again. One of the drivers who took service. Scotty Johnson already dropping a lot of spots. And at 59, wanting a chance at the top 10 and a chance to attack Melican, who's already dropped his way back a couple spots as well from the restart.
Yeah, and a couple of other drivers that I've seen started to move around a lot. James Duke, he's been looking around in 1 and 2, trying to just find any line that works a little bit better for him. He's fallen off the back of Thomas Morris just a little bit here, and now it looks like he's vulnerable to Paul Williams.
Taking a look at the back end right now, you can see that side-by-side battling. That's again now going to be for the 12th position. Charles Sumner in the Tropicana machine looking to take Dan McLaren with them. And a bit of a push-up that time for Sumner, having to get off the gas. And that's the difficulty when it comes to passing. Yes, it's full throttle. Yes, the bottom line is the preferred line. But as the tires wear on, you risk pushing up. Drivers battling for the race lead. Up towards the front, it's now a 3-car scrap. Regan Jr. trying to hold on to the bottom line to keep the clean air there. Josh Slade with a huge run entering the corner. Arrow pushes up a touch on the entry.
Yeah, and as you're saying, it is a big deal if you do get tight when you're especially on the bottom trying to pass somebody, because you will have to lift to make sure you don't run into that door, and as soon as you do that, all your momentum is gone, and then you're vulnerable to everybody behind you.
And there's the chance, Christian, to that top line. If it works its way in, especially rubbers up, there's a chance that becomes a very big line potentially here.
Yeah, the top line can become a great defensive option. In 1 and 2 here, you do still tend to see that it fans out quite a bit, and the bottom or the middle even might be something you can use, but especially if you're running the top on the exit of 3 and, well, on the exit of 4, you can really make life difficult for cars running the bottom.
Slade not able to make any move quite yet. In fact, nearly clipped the apron a touch. Lost about a 1/10 of a car length. Off to the corner, coming to 65 laps to go, already 20 laps in. There's a big battle behind. You might have noticed that yellow and orange machine. Mark Halen's shuffled out to the top, and that has opened the revolving door. James Duke nearly put the door stopper in and nearly hit the left rear quarter panel of the 62.
And doing that, he nearly ended up being vulnerable to Paul Williams going into 3. James Duke on the apron there going into 3. That's going to make him really slow coming off of that corner, and he's got 2 behind him with a ton of momentum.
James Duke's mistake. Still looking to find a lawn. He does have aero damage. Duke has in the Callahan Auto Parts machine. But still able to hold on to the bottom side. That damage, though, has got to be concerning if you're the 76 of Duke. Now, in that midst of the fighting cars, because if you get any sort of aero damage, it can affect your straight line speed, and that is very crucial here when it comes to being full throttle a majority of the run in Las Vegas.
Yeah, and it does look like he's down a little bit in terms of straight line speed. No matter which lane he's in, it just doesn't look like he's coming off the corner with as much speed as the guys that are behind him.
Putting him up for grabs for a car on the outside line. Talked about the chance of that working in. Just to the right, Brendan Shatley has taken the top groove away in the 59 machine. You see that in the Rescue Racing machine, as this is the fight for P number 8. Brendan Shatley showing the top line has worked its way in if you're able to make it work. That time makes it work on the top of 3 and 4. And that can open up the door for potential opportunities for our passes on the track.
And a couple of the drivers behind have seen that as well. Just looking at the 18 of Robert Milliken, he saw what was happening up ahead and tried to get to the outside of Paul Williams. Wasn't quite able to do it. But now we see Chatley on the outside of Chad Brown going to pull the same move in 3 and 4.
And does it pretty quickly, too. Chatley looking very comfortable. And mind you, it's only about a lap or so difference in the tires, which isn't any sort of drastic difference. The tires equalize pretty quickly at that amount of distance. It's just Chatley has found a way to get that line to work, it seems, at the right moment, the right time, to get cutting through the field. While Chad Brown, well, it's now a hornet's nest, essentially, near 3 wide down the back straightaway for James Duke to the inside.
Yeah, Chad Brown, he started up there on that last restart, and he got himself all the way up into 5th place, but looks like he just pushed a little too hard too early, and now he's being swallowed up by the cars behind.
Leaders have just caught lap traffic. Colton Lane and Robert Bisson Jr. just had to go in 2 separate lanes. Bisson Jr. went to the bottom. Lane elected to go to the top. Made it a bit dicey for the top 4 and actually has broken up the pack a little bit. They were single file. Now they're separated a little bit more. About 3-4 car lengths for first and second. About 5 car lengths to second and third because of that.
Yeah, we saw Josh Slade was right on the back of Richard Regan Jr. until they reached that pair of cars. Now he's about 3/10 back, so he's going to have to run him back down. He does have a nice buffer now, though, about half a second back to Josh Daniel.
And a call to end all calls, potentially. This is a place where you can gamble in Las Vegas. Paul Williams II has just hit. The 7 car is into the pit lane from 17th last time by. That's an intriguing one. It would be about 59 laps or so he'd have to make on the fuel.
Yeah, he's on the very, very edge of the fuel window there. I do think that he can make it, but he's probably going to have to save just a little bit. We've seen that this team, though, has played this kind of strategy before in this series, so we'll have to see if it works out for him. I think if there is a late yellow, he'll be in a really good spot.
And I find that very curious to see what he can do. 14.5-second pit stop with 4 tires of fuel, by the way, for him. But now is going to, if he can reel down lanes, 12-second gap, chance to get to the lucky dog spot at the very least. Currently taking a look at the battle for 3rd position as Daniels up for grabs as Stephen Durbin looks to pass him on the inside. The U.S. Army CB's machine can't get the run he needs to clear him by Apex. Actually lets off the gas here, thinking big picture maybe here, wanting to maybe not lose too much time, because here's the thing when it comes to the long run, Christian. If you battle too long, you can lose the slipstream of the cars in front, and in turn, potentially lose the chance to battle with them. In some cases, the times can be as up to 0.3 of a second difference between draft and no draft.
Yeah, exactly, and they do need to be careful here because they're now about 0.6 off the back of Josh Slade. And interestingly to me is that Regan Jr. seems to have actually broken the draft to Slade and is now pulled out to nearly 0.8 of a second. So he's at the head of the line and he's actually escaping from the field now.
And that's very difficult, mind you, we talked about. But if you can do it, it makes it difficult for the car behind to close it. And that's where many teams say, if you're able to get good driving ability in solo car situations like this, especially to set yourself up after, say, a green flag pit stop, you're in a golden situation to try and win a race.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing. If you can build a gap, then as you're saying, when you do pit, it gives you more options. You can pit a little bit later and come out amongst the pack, but with much better tires. You can just pit and still have that advantage. And if as you say, in solo car speed, you are faster, you will continue to pull away because they will not catch you.
Meanwhile, still drafting along is 3rd and 4th. And just like that, because they line up single file for that past lap or so, they've been able to close the gap to about 4/10 or so, give or take, up to Josh Slade to keep up with 2nd position. Slade, though, meanwhile, is losing 1/10 of a second each lap now for that race lead. 1.1 seconds or so is the gap you see on the left side pylon up on the board. They now are inside the fuel window to make it to the end, mind you. The fuel window up to about 56 to 58 laps, give or take, at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. So these drivers now could basically come any time throughout these next few 20-30 laps or so to try and mix up strategy, because in part that caution making it a little bit easier to stretch it a touch.
It is a big risk though if you do come down early. As we see, Paul Williams is still scored a lap down. He hasn't made his way back onto the lead lap yet, so you do have to be careful of that. That said, if you are the leader or if you're inside the top 5, you do tend to drive the race strategy, and as soon as everybody sees you come down, the rest of the field's probably going to pit within the next 5, so that does reduce the risk a little bit if you do want a short pit.
That's kind of why I called it the gamble to end-all gambles. The strategy called it end-all strategy calls, rather. Because it's one you don't expect to see at Las Vegas, let alone at a majority of the mile-and-a-half circuits, even with this package. Charles Sumner, by the way, is in 6th position at the moment. He's a +5 on the race, and reeling in Thomas Morris's 69 machine and taking Chatley with them. And Chatley, mind you, is one of the faster cars on the track in the 32.2s, Sumner in the 31.9s.
Yeah, that is something I've been watching. It seems like Slade, Daniels, Durbin, and Morris, they're all kind of falling back a little bit, and Sumner's actually running very, very quickly right now. The only driver out there who's really running quicker is the leader, Regan Jr., the only driver in the 31.8s.
And by the way, 2nd place, reeled in quickly with the draft. Daniels tried to take a peek on the outside, but here comes the diamond in the late arc off the corner. Daniels electing to take it up high since Slade wants to play defense. Will Daniels be able to make that high line work like Chatley has? No, he doesn't elect to side draft. If he went half lane lower, maybe he would have had a better shot this time, though. He'll try and get the run, but it's equalized by the apron.
Yeah, now they're going to be too wide, perhaps going into 1 and 2, and as we see there, Durbin is right now in this fight.
Durbin electing to help Daniels. He wants to move up into a possible podium position. And Daniels, with that run on the top line, moves up to 2nd position. And Daniels has had a stellar past couple races, mind you, in that 77. We've seen how strong he was at Daytona Christian. He's having another strong race here tonight at Las Vegas.
Yeah, and he's been playing this race really smart. I was watching him earlier on, and it did definitely look like he was saving a little bit of tire when he was in amongst the pack, knowing that you can't really escape. And now up in 2nd spot, he's set himself up really good for the second half of the race. Not sure he's going to be able to do anything about Regan Jr. being that far out front, but definitely looks like the strongest car out of this group of 3 right now.
Slade is now falling back to 4th position. You just see on the screen as Durbin was able to make the move on the top line. And Slade's now struggling a little bit, it seems like. That time, Slade actually pushed up the track on the corner exit. And now Durbin, he wants to use the top line to move to 2nd position. This continues to lose them time to the race lead, but again, positions are positions. Durbin wants to be in his highest running position this season, the 42 up to P2.
Yeah, and I'm really surprised, actually, because I really did think that Daniels was the strongest of this group of 3, but Durbin's just been able to make that top line work, and it doesn't look like it's going to be long before he completes that pass and is in 2nd.
Yeah, absolutely here. But it's still on for 2nd, though. Daniels able to keep it side by side as they continue to work their way up towards the top line. Durbin using it about a line higher than you'd expect. He's trying to, looks like, bank it off the top line, but again, it's almost like you want to be on that middle line rather than the top line, as you discussed there. Durbin, though, going a bit too high. Pit stop coming for Sumner. Sumner coming in this time by. He's bringing Chatley with them.
Yeah, I'm actually really surprised that Sumner came down there because he was running down this group for the second position right there. So pitting pretty early here, about 5 laps earlier than I actually expected the majority of the field was going to come down.
Those drivers now just stopping in their boxes right now. You see them up on the screen. Mark Kalin also caught following his way into the pit lane this time by. And none of the other leaders following them on in. There is 44 laps to go this time by, and the 62 had to back up to get into his race stall. This is a disaster of a stop. Disaster.
Yeah, he's still sat there trying to get service as the rest of the guys that he came in around have already left.
So a good run turns into a disastrous run with the pit stop situation. And finally is up on the left side part of the jacks to get tires. Looking at the leaders once again, second on back. Thomas Morris has reeled in these drivers. That's how much they fought. And they lost about a second or so, swapping second, third, and fourth back and forth in sequence.
Yeah, and that's the bit that was really surprising to me about this group, is that they'd managed to escape the rest of the pack, and then they fought so hard that they brought everybody back into play. It just seemed a weird group decision, but I guess everybody was fighting for that second spot.
Chad Brown just ducked down this time by the way, leader is also in, Richard Regan Jr. coming in around the halfway point of the race for the start of lap number 44 and the end of lap 43. The bright side for Paul Williams II with the strategy call. He gets back on the lead lap this upcoming time by with this call. Also, we'll have to see if anyone tries to counter this move coming up here for Richard Regan Jr.
Yeah, and I was actually keeping tabs on Paul Williams II's lap times, and obviously with those fresh tires, he was circulating very, very quickly, but he was quite a ways back, so it'll be interesting to see where he comes out. That said, unless a yellow comes out, he's going to be very, very vulnerable near the end of the race because he's going to be so much slower than the guys pitting on strategy.
Oh, trouble! Josh Slade on the pit entry. He got loose and nearly spun it onto the racetrack. Lots of time lost for Slade. Melican had to abort his pit lane entry as a result. And there is a difficulty level when it comes to this pit entry because right where he lost control there, Christian, there's a bump where if you hit it on the splitter, it can send you to the right.
Yeah, this is one of those deceptively difficult pit entries, actually, because the cone's so far along, so you can be really, really aggressive with it. But as you say, if you are slightly offline, and especially if you end up out in that segment there where it's neither the racetrack or the pit lane, it is bumpy, and it will unsettle the car and can cause you to spin like that.
So Slade losing a ton of time on the racetrack because of that. Scotty Johnson and Robert Melican have dunked down this time as well. It looks like Durbin up on the top side, hand out the window from the 77. So Durbin cycles up to the race lead for the time being. By the way, Paul Williams II is back on the lead lap. He made his move past those cars as they went around. Daniels, as mentioned, now inside the cone for his service with about 38 laps to go.
Yeah, and just taking a look at the scoring tower, it does look like Williams II has cycled himself in front of Regan Jr., but that won't last very long. He's not got much margin. He's got about 4 seconds back to him and much older tires.
And Daniels, mind you, does have a bit of right end damage. And don't think we noticed that there before, so there's a chance that's going to affect his car just a little bit on the rear end.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that might have happened if he was coming down on a pit road and somebody clipped him not knowing he was coming in.
And we might have found one of the cars, at least, that has some bumps and bruises. Again, that is one of the drivers involved in the first caution flag. Thomas Moore sucking in. Stephen Durbin is also into the pit boxes for their scheduled service. So the interesting thing when it comes to Morris, even with that little wrinkles of sheet metal you've seen on the right side of the car a little bit, he's shown good speed to reel in Durbin and co, in part because of the battles. He's still in the fight for a top 5.
Yeah, that was something I was going to mention after spotting that damage on his car, that he's been running very, very well despite that. So, as you say, it's actually unfortunate we didn't get to see what he could do if the car was clean, but by being smart, he's played himself into that top 5 group.
The driver that's in the lead is Dan McLaren at the moment by 1.7 seconds. Remember, McLaren was one of the drivers who was involved in the first caution flag. So he does have a couple extra laps inside the tank on the 73 machine, but significant damage on the Hard Knock Sim Sports machine. Already getting past like a rolling stone on the outside line. The difference in pace, more than a second between fresh tires and old tires.
Yeah, he's got a massive amount of nose damage, and honestly, he wasn't a particularly quick car before the stops, but now with old tires and damage, he's very slow relative to the guys who have pitted.
Chatley and Sumner still tight together. They have cycled their way to net P2 and 3 with their pit call by a decent margin, by about 6 seconds. If they are able to hold that gap, there's a chance they can sneak themselves onto a top 3 finish overall. That is huge for them, and huge that they're working with the draft. By the way, Paul Williams II, as this is all going on, is still in the lead by 2 seconds on his 15-20 lap older tires in the 7.
Yeah, and this is where this pairing here of Chatley and Sumner need to be smart. They don't need to fight each other. They're pulling away from the group behind. They're not actually that far behind Regan Jr. And as you say, if they just run smart and they stay together without fighting too much, they're going to lock themselves into a second and third spot here, providing it stays green.
But right now, the pace surprisingly isn't as quick, mind you, as Richard Regan Jr., who is on a bit fresher tires and clean air. But right now, Regan Jr. still is technically not the net race leader. That's because, again, it's the second. That's the car right in front. Did do that undercut. The thing is, though, he is half a second a lap quicker on the fresher tires.
Yeah, so what Williams really is banking on here is a caution coming out within the next 3 to 5 laps. Okay, if it comes out after 3, I think Regan Jr. is going to have passed him by then, but he'll still be a net second position. And this is where this strategy only works if the yellow comes out, because if it stays green, he's got 32 laps of the race to go. There's no way he's going to retain a position inside the top 10 just with that pace differential.
Yeah, that was a massive gamble to try it, but this is a place where you can do it in Las Vegas. But unfortunately, the bet is not going to come through potentially unless he gets a quickie yellow. There's still time to tell, though. So, coming towards that inside. Williams II just about to lose the lead while you take a look at Daniels and Johnson. Look to scrap for 8th position on the racetrack. As that's gone on, by the way, Williams II has lost the race lead. Or the net race lead, rather.
Yeah, I'm just keeping an eye on Dan McLaren. Actually still out there on track. Still 10 seconds in the lead, but owes a pit stop. I'm wondering when he's going to actually come down. It's got to be within the next 5 laps, surely.
Taking a look at McLaren right now, it's about 8 seconds the gap, and it's right towards the end of the fuel tank at this point, even with the pit stop factored in, with getting some of that damage repaired. So I think McLaren's hoping for a yellow to be able to keep himself on the lead lap, because at this point, if he does knock down, he will potentially lose the lead lap by a decent chunk.
Yeah, if he does pit under green, he's going to cycle back down to probably about 18th or maybe even 19th spot.
Yeah, the gap went down 2 seconds in just that sentence alone. That's how much Regan Jr. is closing in. So we'll have to keep an eye still on the 73. And he's going to have to do it pretty quickly, because he does have the clean space for now to be able to use that bottom line and duck down. By the way, Charles Sumner, Brendan Chatley, still bumper to bumper. They're still losing a tenth a lap, though, to Regan Jr. They are closing in on Paul Williams II as that's closing in. The moment. McLaren, though, just moments ago, just hit the wall on the entry to turn number 1 in the 73, so McLaren really struggling. He hit the outside wall just before the safer barrier.
We see him on the exit of 4 here, looking on the bottom of the track, no problems. But then as he gets into 1, I'm wondering, does he just run too high and just grab the outside wall? It's a lot easier than you might think to do. Oh, yeah, it looked like actually he kind of grabbed the apron in the tri-oval and unsettled him, and then for some reason he couldn't cut the car back down the racetrack. Yeah,
that added a lot more right front aero damage on that car. Thought he is going to go down that time by. He actually clipped the apron moments after that in turn 3. But instead does not pit. He's now lost the overall race lead to Richard Regan Jr. Collins the second, also about to catch up to him. Let's see right here. Williams the second goes low. McLaren stays out of the way. The bright spot for Williams the second, though, he's found a drafting partner in David A. Wilson Jr.
Yeah, and this is where Williams II's strategy, it's obviously not going to be a race-winning strategy at the minute. Just looking at lap times, he's lapping about 0.3 of a second slower than the net third-place car, Charles Sumner. But at the same time, he's got quite a nice buffer, and it's going to be on the cars behind him that are faster to run him down. And I thought that he might not stay inside the top 10. Now I'm thinking he might actually have a shot at this.
Maybe, just maybe. Might have a good shot at the top 5. In terms of the timing, especially looking at the pacing of some of these drivers in the gaps. On the pylon, Sumner 6.7 seconds behind Regan Jr. Williams the second, 3 seconds behind. So all the drivers spaced out for the time being, unless you look at this grouping here, which is 3rd and 4th. There's also a drafting pack, by the way, for 5th on back. That's where Durbin cycled out. If we can take a look towards that direction, we can. That's where Scotty Johnson's reeled him in, as well as Joshua Daniels. James Duke is also hanging on by a thread to the toe.
Yeah, and this is where we've got these little groups of cars around the track that have all sort of built themselves their own little packs, and this group should really stay and work together to try and actually run down that pairing of Sumner and Chatley, especially until maybe about 5 to 10 to go, because I do think it might be possible. It's a decent sized gap, but I think it's doable, especially if the pair ahead start fighting.
Yeah, the pair ahead hasn't fought at all between Chatley and Sumner, maybe thinking the big picture here with the toe. But these drivers also electing to stay single file. The way they're gaining at the moment, they're gaining 0.3 a lap. But the gap they have to close about 3 seconds. Hello, lap car. Bisson Jr. out of the pits. Breaks them up a little bit. That causes a bit of chaos.
And that's really spread them out. Now there's about 2 to 3 car lengths between them, and it's going to take them a lap or two to get back formed up.
Yeah, Bisson Jr. went from the apron all the way up to the wall, and that's what caused them to scatter plot their way down the back straightaway. That's not what they were expecting. With this, when it comes to lap traffic, you expect them, when you are a lead car, to stay down low on the bottom side.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a confusing move. I think he thought he was trying to help by getting himself all the way to the top before they got there, and I think he kind of did, but as you say, it's still a little unexpected. You don't expect a guy coming out of the pits to just sweep up the racetrack like that.
Yeah, this is the reason, again, they went hard off the top. You see the closing distance is massive. Bisson Jr. rushes up top, and all the cars scattered. Daniels scattered the most, thinking of the worst potentially there. But they were just able to get to the bottom side. That could have been potentially worse if Bisson Jr. was even 10 feet closer to those cars. That could have caused massive chaos, even more so. Take a look still at 3rd and 4th. These drivers looking committed to working together to try and hold on to good top 5 runs today.
The question is, how long are they going to work together, though? And they still have to pass Williams when they get to him. They're about 1.5 seconds, maybe, well, 2 seconds actually, just looking at the pylon now behind him. They will catch him. The question is when, and when they do catch him, how are they going to race? Are they going to stick together as a pair, or are they going to start fighting with each other?
Yeah, that's going to be the case of the curious decision-making for some of these drivers. There is still 20 or so laps to go, coming to 19 to go for these machines. So there is time to think about those things and hope that you get some luck or anything to happen on this racetrack. They are closing in now for the 2nd position, while Johnson and Daniels just swap positions. Johnson riding the bottom, is able to get by Daniels. They were side by side for a split second.
Yeah, that's really broken up that pack as well. We see Stephen Durbin's been able to escape a little bit. We'll have to see if Scotty Johnson can run him down and get back in this 3-car pack kind of formed up, or whether Durbin's actually now escaped them.
Yeah, they're still inside the draft. But here's the thing. It takes multiple laps to set up yourself to get to the back bumper of a car behind with this package at Las Vegas, Christian, where you need to focus. You can gain about a tenth or so with that draft as a result in the long run if you're that far back for some of these cars.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that you have to do is not be too excited about catching a car. You've got to kind of work up to them really slowly. You can't just try and dive it in there and catch them, because you'll just struggle with the front tires immediately as soon as you get pretty much right to their bumper, really. And it's really frustrating because you can run somebody down, and then it's so much harder to get that last little bit to get to them, and then even more so to actually pass them.
There's a chance we see the pass coming up here for second position pretty quickly here, coming to 16 laps to go. So, Williams the second is just on the other side of that purple and white David A. Wilson Jr. machine for Pilot Performance Group. And Wilson Jr. in 15th position. Gap is now half a second, and into the draft they go now of the lap machine. Sumner has been able to break away a little bit as this has gone on from Chatley by a tenth this time by.
Yeah, it looks like picking up the draft and the two cars ahead of him has allowed him to just build that little bit of a gap back to Chatley. He's got to clear the lap car, and then he'll have to clear Williams the second. Just looks like Chatley, though, is actually now starting to fall back from Sumner.
Now the fall off might be starting to kick in with being inside his arrow for much of this run instead of the clean air like Sumner has been. So we'll have to see if Sumner can make this move. The time differential had evened out a little bit between these cars, mind you, to about 0.3 of a second a lap. Prior to them reaching the draft, Sumner having the chance to make the move. Will Williams the second give him the space, or will Sumner have to work for it? Looks like Williams the second does indeed give him the bottom to try and make this move.
And the thing is here is now how is Williams the second's car going to drive when he's behind Sumner? Because as he's been in clean air this whole time, but he does have older tires, and I know that when a car with fresher tires passes you, the aero push, it just becomes absolutely horrific if you've got older tires. And we see here he isn't able to stay that close to Sumner, but the real test is going to be 3 and 4 and what Chatley can do.
Look at the bottom right corner of your screen. There's a reason you see a fourth car there. Merth Durbin broke away from his drafting pack. Somehow, with the help of the draft, he's gone into the fastest car on the racetrack in the 31.4s. He's behind Chatley and is now trying to get by him and Wilson Jr. right now. Chatley actually trying to push Wilson Jr. up on the top line. Durbin takes advantage and makes the move. That moves up to 4th position.
Yeah, Durbin's absolutely flying right now, and he's taken that position really kind of by stealth. He just crept up there, and suddenly Chatley was vulnerable, and now he's past him.
Still has to get by the lap car. There's a chance he can get to Williams the second, and all of a sudden, we've seen this run from Durbin in the first stint of this race. We're seeing now in the second, Durbin has a very good chance to come home in second if he can keep his speed together for the next 12 laps or so and get up to these two cars.
Yeah, and he's rolling through 1 and 2 so much better than the pair of them. Even Sumner in clean air is looking slower than Durbin in the draft right now. I think Williams the second is pretty much a nailed-on spot that Durbin's going to get. Whether he's going to have the time to get Sumner, I'm not sure, but I think he's going to be close.
Yeah, he's running the bottom really well compared to these two cars at the moment. And when you add that strap down the straightaway, it helps them be the fastest car outside of Regan Jr. on the track. Looks like, though, he's trying to find different lines here, taking the high side to middle line in the entry of turn 1 and 2. And he's been trying to arc it down off the bottom of turn 2 to try and get some extra speed down the back straightaway for the run to turn 3.
Yeah, I'm not sure that helped him there that time. It looked like he lost a little bit of his advantage, but now he's very, very close to Williams coming down the front stretch. He's definitely going to go to the bottom here in a 1.
All up to the top, into the bottom, up to the top 3 goes Steven. So the 42 machine now inside the draft to Sumner with under 10 laps to go. Good chance, I think, still that he has time to try and make this move, because if it was 5 to go, I'd be worried. At 9 to go, there's still, I think, a couple chances for Durbin to make this pass.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think Sumner's in a really compromised position here. Durbin's ran them down. Sumner does have the clean air, though, that Williams didn't, so we'll have to see if that helps him. But as you say, with 9 to go, that is a long time to hold somebody off.
Laid the gap down to 0.2 of a second. Durbin still trying to now follow the tire tracks. His Toyota Camry at the moment, a bit lower still in turn 3 and 4's exit. And coming to 8 to go. And the caution flag is out. This changes everything in a handbasket because Baron Hilton just crashed into turn 3.
And this is exactly what Regan Jr. didn't want for, I think, the 4th race this season, where he's been out to a commanding advantage, and then the yellows come out. Just collection of lap cars there. Looks like McLaren was involved with that.
And he just came up across McLaren. A weird decision from Hilton. We'll see this once again. Just McLaren's already up there on the top for a good half a straightaway and still comes up.
Yeah, it's just strange. It was like Hilton didn't know McLaren was to his outside there.
And now that means everyone's back into the conversation to get the race victory. Take a look from McLaren. And he gave him some space, mind you. He wasn't all the way up to the wall, yes, but still. Ends up getting the squeeze into the fence. And that brings out the caution and rips off the front clip.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of space on the bottom there. It just looked like Hilton drifted up too much and turned himself across the nose of McLaren. And both cars with significant damage. Both cars, I believe, were off the lead lap, though, at the time. So it's not actually going to affect their positions that much.
Yeah, Hilton was in 14th. McLaren is now in 16th. And now it gets interesting as, oh boy, the top 2 stayed out. Here we go again. Another repeat of Bristol.
Yeah, big split decision here, and I think that really everybody was really in a bad position with this, because with 6 to go after such a long run, yeah, you do want the tires, but you got 13 on the lead lap. What'd you do if it goes down to 2 to go and a green-white checker, then nobody else pitted? You're not going to clear him, so I think Regan Jr. in a bad spot, but we've seen him come out of these scenarios before in a good spot, so we'll have to see if he can hold on.
Oh boy, has got to be the thought process now. Robert Melican did take 2 tires, so did Josh Slade in that pit window. But the difference in terms of speed, there's the chance we see the potential craziness we had in the real world race just a couple hours ago. Remember, for those who are tuning in and seen today's Pennzoil 400, strategy was the name of the game for the final restart of the race. Let's just say that to not spoil it, where a decent amount of the field pit. The drivers who stayed out came up inside the top 5. The thing is, though, that had 7 drivers stay out. This had 2.
Yeah, that's the thing, and those guys taking 2 tires really does help people like Regan Jr. and Sumner who are out there on 0. It creates, obviously they're still at a disadvantage versus those guys on 2, but it does create at least a bit of a buffer to the cars on 4.
And for Regan Jr., remember, I was talking about this with him actually before the race a little bit. He felt he needed a top 5 at the minimum to secure the championship tonight. To be able to be comfortable, including the drop with his worst points performance last week at Daytona, to enter the last round at Auto Club as the Season 1 champion. Now, that's going to be very hard with what is looking to be a potential 3-lap shootout to decide it.
I think he's still in a good spot, though. I think that he can actually maintain that top 5, but we'll just have to see how it works out behind him, and if he can escape a little bit on the restart. I'll be honest and say I don't think he's going to win this race, but I do think he might be able to hold on to that top 5. I think the guy that's in the best position to win this race now is Durbin. He's 5th, so 3rd in line on the bottom lane. If those cars ahead of him wash up in a 1, you can bet he's going to be there on that white line.
I was going to say that's the concern, I think, for the drivers on 2 tires here. They're trying to warm up par, Josh Slade specifically. They took 2. That we've seen many times does lead to that push-up.
Yeah, Yeah, and I do think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with those guys on 2 because, like you say, it's quite a split decision. They're expecting that they're probably going to be tight, but then at the same time, are they going to be tighter or are they going to be freer than the guys who took it on? It sounds strange, but there's obviously a big difference in air pressure, and that can be quite a big deal.
Lights out on top of the official iRacing Ford Mustang pace car. Buckle up, folks. It's time for an aerodramatic finish of the PRL Cup Series sponsored by Diecast Kings. As Richard Regan Jr. on old tires along with Charles Sumner leads row 1. Then 2 cars on 2 tires. Milliken, Slade, and P's 3 and 4. Durbin is the first car on 4 tires in 5th. Paul Williams II's gamble is paid off to a 6th place restarting position. Chatley and Daniels 7th and 8th. Johnson and Morris round out the top 10. Your final thoughts before we get things rolling again here, Christian. This could get wild.
Well, we've put quite a big emphasis on tires, but something that I thought is worth mentioning is at the beginning of the race and that subsequent restart, we saw the drivers that took 4 and had new tires. They were struggling a lot with loose in 3 and 4, so I think that's also a little bit of a concern for them. Not quite a total landslide advantage for those guys on 4. They do have to worry about some things.
Cars revving their engines to 3 and 4. Already a decent gap being given by row number 2 for this start. iRacing official pace car is off. Regan Jr. off and away. Green flag is out. 3 laps are decided in the PRL Cup Series, live from Las Vegas.
Yeah, poor restart by Durbin. He let everybody out ahead get away from him, and Williams II's actually dropped in front of him. He's now in the prime spot to take this win.
The second already up to 4th position. Sumner trying to block the bottom. Slade up to the top side. And here comes the field coming towards 2 laps to go. Regan Jr. to the bottom. Slade on 2 tires up to the top side. Williams Jr. tries to drop by as he gets up to 3rd. Side by side for the race lead. Slade trying to side drops. Slade gets it up for the stripe. 2 to go from Las Vegas.
I'm so surprised that Williams II didn't put them 3 wide there. That's exactly what I would have done. I would have dived all the way to the white line and made sure we were 3 going into 1. Now he's going to have to run down Slade. He gets tight on the exit of 2 as well.
Tries to block Chatley, trying to keep as many points. Durbin gives a shot to Williams II. Slade trying to hold on to the 2 tires as Chatley gets loose on the bottom side. White flag makes the race official. Will they make it to the stripe? Yes, indeed they will. 1 to go from Las Vegas.
And the 2 cars in 2nd and 3rd need to make sure they don't fight each other, but actually work together to get past Slade here. It's going to be their only chance, I think.
Slade on the 2 tires. Looking to block, bobbles off the corner. Williams II up on the top side. Side by side for the race lead in turn 3 and 4. Who'll make it to the stripe first?
Slade's got a really good run on exit, but what can Williams do on the top?
He pushes up the track. Josh Slade on 2 tires wins it from the Sin City. 2nd place Williams II. Durbin finishes in 3rd. What a stellar finish. What a crazy way to end it from Las Vegas. Let's take a look at your GSRC replay of these final moments as Slade able to hold on as Williams II went up the hill, Christian.
Yeah, it looked like Williams II just couldn't hold it low enough after 3 and 4 to make that run work, and Slade on those 2 tires, really good restart by him and a great way to win the race. Now, unfortunately for Regan Jr., led almost the entire race, out a massive lead before that yellow came out, stayed out, comes home in 8th.
Going to be curious to see if it's going to be enough points to secure a championship at that 8th place run. But Josh Slade burns them down and spins it off into the grass. He takes home the victory in round number 9 of the PRL Cup Series, sponsored by Diecast Kings. Unofficial race results and post-race coverage coming up after this. You're watching the Global SimRacing Channel live from the virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway in Las Vegas, Nevada. SimRacing Channel's coverage of the PRL Cup Series, sponsored by Diecast Kings. It was an absolutely wild one from Las Vegas, and Josh Slade on 2 tires takes home the checker flag by 6/100ths of a second over Paul Williams II. Stephen Durbin comes home in 3rd. It was one of his best runs of the season. Robert Milliken, Thomas Morris round out the top 5, with Joshua Daniels in 6th, Brendan Shatley in 7th, but Richard Regan Jr. A gamble to end all gambles again. Something similar to what we've seen at tracks like Bristol this season for Regan Jr. Dominated most of the race, loses the event on strategy, comes home in 8th. Scotty Johnson and James Duke round out their top 10.
Then just outside the top 10, we had Jeff Costello, started 16th and came home in 11th. Alongside him, we had David Wilson Jr., started 12th, finished 12th. And our other driver who stayed out on that restart at the end, restarted 2nd, had a great run tonight. Unfortunately, comes home in 13th, is Charles Sumner. Alongside him, we had Chad Brown in 14th, the last car on the lead lap. And then we had Baron Hilton and Dan McLaren, those 2 drivers that brought out that yellow at the end of the race there in 15th and 16th. Then Mark Kaelin and Colton Lane in 17th and 18th, and Rachel Hunt and Robert Bissell Jr. in 19th and 20th. And the last driver to take the start of the race was Jake Hanshaw, who came home in 21st.
The drivers who did not make the start, Bradley Hawley, as he's the race director for the series tonight. Evan Black did not make the start. Corey Silva also did not begin. They did, both of those cars, 92 and 94, practice their respective rides. But Josh Slade takes home the checker flag, and what was an exciting way to come away with it. Josh, how does it feel to win your first victory of the season tonight? He's having a bit of a technical issue. Give him one moment here. Apologies here. As Josh Slade looks to work on that issue again, a stellar victory from him. It's his first victory of the season, his 3rd top 5, his 4th top 10 of the season.
Yes, all sorted now.
Okay, we now have Josh Slade in the broadcast booth. How does it feel to take home your first victory of the season tonight in a crazy fashion?
Absolutely awesome. I actually had no idea I was going to come away with that. When I started losing earlier in the race, just before the pit stops, falling back, I figured, yeah, whatever, I'll finish someplace in the top 5, top 10. Never in the wildest I thought I was going to finish in first.
What came down to the decision to take 2 tires, and how difficult was it in the end to execute your decision to take that victory?
Easy. It was absolutely easy to decide on 2 tires. I decided it worked at Charlotte for some guys. It worked on another track for a few other guys, and I believe the other gamble was Pocono, where I took 2, and it worked. And 2 tires seems to be
a stellar race for you overall tonight. And another thing I want to discuss real quickly here is, of course, this is a track where it seemed it was important to stay with the drafting pack, stay within that said grouping, and then utilize the draft. How much did that change when you seen that first wreck to start the race that took a lot of the potential drafting partners out of the equation?
I wasn't really thinking that at first. I was more thinking of, did I just damage the front of the car bouncing through the infield trying to avoid everything? And luckily I didn't damage.
Luckily did indeed. But the final race of the season though, Josh, I want to ask you again, is about Auto Club. Auto Club Speedway, a 2-mile circuit to end off the season 1 campaign. Your thoughts on Auto Club to end off first season of 2020?
Unfortunately, I'm not going to be there for Auto Club. I am taking my family on vacation next week. But if it was anything like Michigan, I felt it definitely could have gone pretty well. Michigan was a fun track. I was holding up front as well on that one until a bump threw me into the wall. But other than that, I mean, I wish.
Indeed. Anyone you want to thank before we let you go, though?
I want to thank you guys for the fantastic broadcast that you guys done over the whole season. I want to thank PRL for hosting the league. I want to thank everybody else for racing. the strong racing competition. I've raced with everybody. Diecast Kings for being the title sponsor. I mean, pretty much that's it.
Congratulations on the victory today, Josh. What a way to come home with your first of the season.
Yeah, thank you very much.
That's Josh Slade coming home with the victory today by 6/100ths of a second. The man who finished in second was Paul Williams II. He's standing by with Christian Johnson.
Paul, a good run to second there. We were really skeptical actually about the strategy of pitting so early, but hey, it worked. The yellow came out pretty much right when you needed it, and you made a great call on that restart and came home with second.
Yeah, it was pretty scary there for a while. It was interesting. I decided to qualify tonight, which I hadn't been doing recently, and then we had that caution right away, and I picked up some black flags avoiding it and sent me right back to the rear anyway. So I was playing from behind, and there was a lot of traffic, and I just didn't like what was happening there. So I said, you know what, I'm going to have to just take a stab at something different to see if it'll work. And fortunately, it did. By the time, I ended up getting passed by Richard and was hanging around there in the top 5 or so. I had about, 15 or so lap older tires than those guys, I think it was, and it seemed to balance out a little bit where it looked like I was going to be able to hang on, and then, of course, the caution fell, and that changed everything.
Yeah, I was keeping an eye on that, actually. I saw, obviously, Regan Jr. passed you, and then I was worried that you were then going to slip back amongst all the cars behind, but with about 9 to go when that yellow came out, it looked like you were actually going to be able to hold on. So actually a really good call regardless of what happened. Now, that caution that came out right at the end, obviously, as you say, changed everything. What influenced your decision to come down pit road and take tires, and how hard a decision was it to choose between 2-4 and actually staying out with 0?
Well, I was just on the verge of dropping like a rock. So when the caution came out, I knew I was going to have to pit regardless. I think at that point I had 38 or so, maybe more lap old tires on. So the 2 tires wasn't going to be an option. So I took 4, and, we had that restart, and, I was 4th when it came out. I was 6th on the restart, and I knew that 2 guys in front of me had taken 2 and 2 guys in front of me had nothing. So I knew we were sitting pretty good. We had, some opportunities to do some dangerous things. I could have gone 3 wide on Charles down the backstretch, and I just didn't think that was going to end well for anybody. So maybe that held us up a little bit and didn't quite get me there, but Josh did a great job on those 2 tires finishing it off, and I'm just happy for Diecast Kings that we were able to bring it home second again. I wish we could have got it in victory lane, but it was a good run overall.
Yeah, it's interesting, actually, you mentioned about the whole decision of whether to make it 3 wide or not. It was actually something I called, but you had a big run coming off of 4, and they were side by side ahead of you, and I was really surprised at going down into 1 that you didn't put it 3 wide, but I can totally understand it. Obviously, if it goes wrong and everybody is involved in a wreck, then it's a really bad deal to be part of. And as you say, came home second anyway, so a really good result. And yeah, before we let you go, is there anybody that you'd like to thank tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. You guys, you put on an amazing broadcast, and I watch it every week and enjoy doing that. And obviously the PRL, awesome league, getting some good runs in here lately and makes it much more enjoyable. So really happy about some of the things the guys have put in place. And then lastly, of course, Diecast Kings returning again for a second season next season to sponsor us all. Really happy to have them on board. Wish I could have brought you guys another win, but we'll go get them next week.
Well, thank you for coming and chatting with us, and I believe that this is the last race we're going to cover for this season, as we're covering majors next week, so we will hope to see you back next season.
I'll be back, both series. We'll see you then. Thank you.
That was Paul Williams the second coming home in second, while Stephen Durbin had his second top 5 run of the season in the top 3. Standing by with him, Stephen, how does it feel to come home with one of your best performances this season as one of the contenders throughout this night?
It feels great. I wasn't really sure what to expect until I ran a couple races earlier the week. I knew what I had, so I took some practice. And then once I qualified up front, I knew I just had to stay there and avoid the carnage, which really didn't have any, which was awesome to see. I like the long green flag runs, so that really played in my favor.
Indeed, and talk us through that final run, essentially, before the caution flag, because you're having to work it as a group with some of the drivers, and then On the long run, it seemed you were one of the fastest cars on the racetrack in the same ballpark as Richard Regan Jr. What made you so good on the long run to be able to break away from drivers' drafts and then pick up others without showing any effect, it seemed, from any aero push or any tire wear from the aero after your set passes?
For me, I take care of my tires early. I don't push as hard, so I'll be like 3/4 throttle instead of full throttle like most of the others. So when they start wearing off, I hang on to my grip, but then also I just make sure I take the right arc in, and you can see the other guys go in lower. I'll keep it higher, and you get a good run off the corner. I was lucky to catch the two. I can't remember who it was. I believe it was Charles. They were second and third. They had older tires than me. I had newer tires, so I was able to run them down, which really helped. Just then that caution came out. So, real unfortunate is I would have probably had second if it just ran green. I wouldn't be able to catch Richard because he short pitted and kind of got a good run on us, which was good for him. It just didn't play out in his favor at the end.
It's an overall good night for you, though, but your thoughts heading into Auto Club. Unfortunately, GSRC unable to cover that race, but your thoughts heading to the season finale on your campaign and Auto Club.
A couple of seasons ago, I ran that race, and I ran really well there, so I expect another race like tonight. So I'm really looking forward to that, actually. Just hopefully I'm able to make it. It'll be a fun way to close out the season for sure. There's a lot of good racers in here, and they make for a good show. So I really enjoy it, and I'm going to do the best I can.
Is there anyone you want to thank for being a part of your race today?
Oh, absolutely. PRL is awesome. They're one of the best groups I've ever found, and I really enjoy running with them. The GSRC, you guys, I didn't know it existed when I found it. I'm so happy. I watch whenever I can of your show. It's really fun to watch. And then the Diecast Kings for sponsoring the series itself. It's cool to see people supporting this and letting as it grows. So it's just a lot of fun.
Congratulations on the top 3 finish tonight. A good run for you overall.
I thank you very much.
That was Stephen Durbin coming home in 3rd. And before we wrap things up, we have put in the numbers. And going into the season finale, it appears to be a lock. 14 points is the maximum amount of distance gained overall if there was 0 points in the final round for Richard Regan Jr. In turn, that means no one else can surpass him. Richard Regan Jr. is your 2020 Season 1 PRL Cup Series sponsored by Diecast Kings champion. Richard, stellar campaign with multiple victories. How does it feel to be a champion?
You know, it feels good to finally get a championship on this sim. I haven't had a league championship. I mean, it feels good to win the championship, obviously. I mean, it's very, very difficult to do, but, you know, I'm kind of aggravated about the race. You know, everyone had a good race. You know, it just sucks that the strategy bit me again because, you know, if I pit, everyone stays out, and if I don't pit, like what happened, everyone pits and it either takes 2 or 4, but that's the name of the game. But, yeah, I mean, it's awesome to win the championship, and, yeah, just had fun overall this season.
What were some of the challenges, in your opinion, to try and be able to battle with this championship? Because throughout the season, you had different various types of competitors. Early on, Josh Coley was one of the potential factors. Dallas Pataska was up there with you. And then the dynamics changed as the campaign progressed. What made it so difficult, in your opinion, to be able to keep going so strong on a week-to-week basis?
Definitely luck. Even though, you know, I had a few races not go my way where I was in the lead most of the time and I didn't win it. I was still consistent. For example, my buddy James O'Brien, he had a lot of bad luck early on in the season, which put him to a big deficit. And then, unfortunately, with Dallas Pataska not being able to make some of the later stages of the racing, you know, that kind of took away a little bit competition. So just the fact that I was able to stay a little bit more consistent was what really made me be able to lock this thing up. And if James and everyone else didn't have as much bad luck, it definitely would have been a very more tighter battle. But I expect in Season 2 for it to be more tighter. Hopefully James can can have some more good luck, and everyone else, they gained a lot of speed this season, and I think it's going to be a really, really fun season too.
Absolutely. It was a stellar Season 1 campaign for you, and remember, with the format later on in 2020, you also have the chance to overall compete for the overall yearly championship, mind you, a part of the new postseason system. But still one more race to go. First things first, will we see you go to Auto Club, and your thoughts on that track overall?
Oh yeah, you'll definitely see me at Auto Club. I mean, I know you guys are going to be doing the majors broadcast and stuff, which kind of sucks, but I'll still be at Auto Club. It wouldn't be smart for me to just not race the last race. I mean, that's kind of disrespectful to the league. So yeah, I'll definitely be there, and hopefully lock up another win there. It's going to be some tough competition. It's a very drafty track, so you got to have a lot of luck on your side, and just hope everything plays out to your favor.
Indeed. Anyone you want to thank for being a part of your championship campaign, Richard?
Yeah, I gotta thank everybody that watches, especially my family, my dad, my stepmom, my aunt, and my mom. They always watch every week. I gotta thank Diecast Kings for sponsoring the series. Without them, we wouldn't have any broadcast or anything, so they do a lot for us. Charles and everyone else that runs PRL, all the drivers, all the viewers, you guys at GSRC. I got to thank Multiple Sclerosis Society, Susan G. Coleman, Amsoil, Folds of Honor, JZ, iRacing Photography, Neonism Games, and Raging Cajun Graphics Designs. And I also got to thank everyone at Bobby Dale Esports for letting me be part of their team and, helping me with my development. And we're going to see where Season 2 takes us.
Congratulations on the championship, Richard. Stellar season with 3 victories, 5 top 5s, and 7 top 10s going into the final round.
Thank you, guys.
Richard Regan Jr., your Season 1 champion for the 2020 campaign of the PRL Cup Series, sponsored by Diecast Kings. And as talked about through the drivers' interviews, fortunately, we'll not be covering the season finale, but we'd like to thank Diecast Kings for being a part of this season's campaign. Once again, you can find them at diecastkings.com and on Facebook at facebook.com/DiecastKings. Christian, your final thoughts on the 2020 Season 1 campaign.
Well, I don't think any of us are surprised, really, that Richard Regan Jr. came away with the overall championship, and honestly, I think it was a pretty dominating performance overall, and the only really disappointing thing for him can be is that there was obviously a lot of race wins, which I think arguably he should have picked up had they stayed green. I think he was probably on for at least 3 more race wins, pretty much near certainly. But those late yellows, they cost him. Obviously, the highest profile ones were tonight at Vegas and obviously back at Bristol as well. So really, that's the only thing that has been disappointing from his campaign. And I think overall, it's been really cool. We have seen a lot of different race winners this season, and we've seen different drivers come to the fore at different kind of racetracks, and I think that's been really cool to see. And once again, it's been a good season to cover, and I've had a great time covering it.
I have as well, and next season's going to be interesting when we get back to covering things on the Global SimRacing Channel for the PRL Cup Series, because already 28 plus competitors already registered for competition. What are your expectations for PRL's Cup Series for Season 2?
Well, I think that we should expect to see Regan Jr. be very, very strong again, and I think he goes into the next season as definitely the guy to beat. Obviously, there's contenders that are always there, people like Rachel Hunt, obviously bad night tonight, but usually on the mile and a half, definitely in amongst the fray at the front. And some other drivers that are kind of getting stronger as we go on. We see Paul Williams is always a good strategy driver to watch. Again tonight, pulled out an interesting strategy that I don't think either of us were suspecting was going to actually play out, but it did, and he comes home with a second place. And obviously, we'll have to look out for some new drivers joining the series as well. And there's always usually at least 1 or 2, and they kind of throw something interesting into the mix, and sometimes they compete right at the front of the field.
Have to wait and see who will compete in season number 2. You can see that on the Global Sim Racing Channel once that campaign goes on. But we'd like to thank you for tuning in to tonight's exciting action from Las Vegas Motor Speedway for the Precision Racing League Cup Series, sponsored by Diecast Kings. We'd like to thank you for tuning in, but also thank the companies that provide software and hardware for broadcasts listed up on your screen. Special thanks goes to Jude Lalonde, who provides her wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, in Christian, in Sean. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including the upcoming races, you can find it on globalsimracingchannel.com. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can find our merchandise for sale on gsrc.storemdy.com. Or you can check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global SimRacing Channel, all one word, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. Don't forget to head over to our YouTube page and hit that big red subscribe button, as well as the notification bell, so you don't miss a moment here on the Global SimRacing Channel. The final race of the season will not be on GSRC on March the 1st for at Auto Club, but you can see the next season on the Global SimRacing Channel PRL Cup Series sponsored by Diecast Kings. Be sure to follow GSRC on social media to keep an eye on the season dates and schedule. But we also have upcoming races for other series listed up on your screen, so check those out and mark them down in your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.